Welcome to OLC 4.0. This is term 2A. We are working on class 7 and on assignment 9. We're also going to be talking about our reading logs and adverbs today. If you are trying to reach out to me, the very best way is email jillian.percy@nnecschools.org. You can also try me on Facebook, capital G, capital P-E-R-C-Y, space, capital W-A-H-S-A. The previous class recordings are also on YouTube at the same address as Facebook. Let's see, what else? Hand in any student work to studentwork@nnec.on.ca. Please make sure your full name, course name, assignment number, and name are on it. If it asks for a rough and for a good copy, please label them both. If you need to take a photograph of an assignment for some reason, please send it as an attachment in the email. If you send it directly in the body of the email, it's very hard for us to print off and it doesn't show properly on the computer. Okay. So today we're going to look at understanding and identifying adverbs in a sentence, using adverbs to add details to sentences, completing assignment number 9, reviewing paragraph structure, reviewing the writing process of brainstorming and creating a rough draft, practicing self-reflection of your literacy abilities, creating a reading log, and we will do assignment 10 if there's time. I'm not positive there will be. Okay, adverbs. Adverbs are words that are describing a verb, another adverb, or an adjective. The boy is running quickly. Quickly is describing the verb running. The boy is running very quickly. Very is describing the adverb quickly. The boy is surprisingly fast. In this case, fast is actually an adjective describing the boy, and rather than the action. And surprisingly is describing the adjective. So those are all ways you can use adverbs. An adverb can be one word like soon, now, easily, perhaps, always, tomorrow, extremely. Or it can be an adverbial phrase. Next week, more successfully, for fun, before the holidays. It can even be an adverbial clause. Remember, a clause can have needs to have a subject and a verb. When I arrive, after she gets there, before she forgets, as soon as she can. There are even conjunctive adverbs, but those are a bit complicated. So we're going to leave them alone for now and maybe come back to them later if we've got a bit of time. Not today, though. All right. Just like in adjectives, there are different categories of adverbs, and they answer different questions. So like there can be adverbs of manner that describe how something happens, adverbs of place that tell you where or the direction or the location that something happens, adverbs of time and duration, adverbs of frequency that tell you how often something happens, adverbs of purpose that describe the reasons for things, adverbs of degree or extent, and adverbs of conditions. Conditions are like limitations, like if this happens, then this. There are also a couple of unusual adverb categories, such as conjunctive adverbs and focusing adverbs. We're not really going to go into those right now because they are a bit fussy. But we're looking at these categories so we get better at recognizing adverbs while we're reading, and also that we have a larger bank of adverbs in our memory when we're writing. So adverbs of manner, they tell us how something is done. These are the adverbs that very often end in ly, like the old lady walked carefully. He quietly crept out of the room. Mom brushed his hair gently. My sister accidentally killed the rabbit when it ran in front of the car. He diffused the bomb with steady hands. So you can see sometimes it's coming after the verb. Sometimes it's coming before the verb. This one, yeah, with steady hands. I like that one. Okay, go on to the next bit here. Okay, adverbs of place. They will tell you location, direction, and distance. Sometimes they can be the exact same as prepositions, the words themselves, but the big difference is that adverbs will be describing the action. So for example, in a sentence, you might say, she fell down, and down is describing how she fell. But if it's a preposition, prepositions would be linking a noun or a pronoun to the rest of the sentence. So if I said he went up the stairs, it would be considered kind of a prepositional phrase. Now, there is a bit of crossover. Some people might consider it both a prepositional phrase and an adverbial phrase. It doesn't really matter what you call it as long as you understand what's grammatical and what's not. Some common adverbs of place are up, down, north, south, inside, outside, everywhere, anywhere, here, there, and around. So comparing these two, so some examples in a sentence are, she looked up would be an adverb. She looked up the hill, it's acting as a preposition. The boys and girls ran around, it's acting as an adverb describing ran. The boys and girls ran around the city block. Now around is connecting a city block to the rest of the sentence. Dad looked everywhere for his key. That one was pretty hard to do in the other way. Just kind of left that one. The golf ball went far. Far is describing how the golf ball went. And the golf ball went far off the course. There it's acting as a preposition. Okay. Adverbs of time, frequency, and duration. When, there's three different types of adverbs of time, all right? Basically, when, which is like tomorrow, yesterday, soon, immediately, often, never. Frequency, or how often something occurs, hourly, daily, monthly, yearly, annually. And the duration, or like how long it occurs, briefly, temporarily, permanently, already, shortly, any longer. So an example of when would be, I write my exam tomorrow. So tomorrow is describing when I'm going to write this. Frequency, we get paid bi-monthly. It's describing our pay time. Duration, the pain from the shot will last briefly. How long will it last? Just briefly. Sometimes you might use several adverbs of time at once in one sentence, like she left work temporarily yesterday afternoon. The plane usually arrives daily. And adverbs of purpose. These are a little bit trickier. A lot of them are very similar to subordinating conjunctions, a little crossover there. Basically, they tell us why something is done. Sometimes they're called adverbs of purpose or adverbs of reason. He ran, why? For fun. She lied, why? To protect him. To lead them astray. The criminal planted false evidence. The school is closed, why? Due to icy roads. The police guarded the murderer carefully since he was known for escaping. Okay, so yeah, that kind of, as far as I understand, that makes sense, right? Anyone has any questions, feel free to call in and ask here. There are some other adverbs of purpose. Some examples would be therefore, so that, hence, consequently, in order to, since, thus, and lest. And like I say, a lot of times these end up getting used in such a way that you end up with a complex sentence, but not always. So here are some examples, right? The football player was very hungry. Therefore, he ordered several entrees at once. He locked the shed so that his children could not play with the power tools. She wished to remain a mystery, hence the elaborate mask at the dance. The business has spent all their money for this month. Consequently, no more orders can be filled until next month. The hardworking waitress saved all her tips in order to a fortification. The celebrity always traveled with a bodyguard since the assassination attempt. The plant was not watered enough, thus it could not grow properly. Lest he forget, he wrote his anniversary on his calendar. Okay, adverbs of degree can be used to modify or describe verbs, adjectives, and other adverbs. They tell us the extent to which something happens. So with a verb, you might have something like, she almost completed all the questions. Her mom scarcely believed they had eaten all the stew. With an adjective, you might have something like, The runner was extremely thirsty. My friend has been deeply unhappy. And with an adverb, you might get things like the student driver parked very carefully. Somewhat haphazardly, the boy began to pack his things. So some other examples are things like almost, absolutely, barely, completely, deeply, enough, entirely, extremely, fairly, hardly, how, incredibly, just. And you can see from these, they wouldn't provide a full picture of themselves. They kind of need to work with another type of adverb or verb to give us a clear picture. Least, lots, most, nearly, perfectly, purely, really, scarcely, simply, so, somewhat, strongly, thoroughly, too, totally, and utterly. So adverbs of condition, they tell us when or under what conditions something gets done. So we will have a picnic unless it rains. He will probably be hungry at 9 o'clock. Perhaps they can celebrate tonight. We will go tomorrow provided we get time off. In case of fire, pull the alarm. We need to pay the bill by Friday. Otherwise, there will be a late fee. Okay, where do adverbs go in a sentence? Adverbs have multiple places they can go. They are very flexible. In terms of word order, they're one of the ones that move around quite a bit. For one word adverbs, it's really common to put it before the verb it's describing. Like, she carefully ate the messy sandwich. He sincerely hoped that his ex was happy. However, it can come right after the verb. She screamed loudly when she saw the ghost. The snow fell gently to the ground. Adverbs can also come at the front of a sentence to introduce the entire clause. Sometimes we do that in order to like emphasize the time element, or to clarify that it applies to the entire sentence, not just the verb. So tomorrow we go to Disneyland. So tomorrow's modifying the entire sentence. Next week, exams will start. After a while, the baby fell asleep. Or they can come at the end of a sentence, as long as it isn't too far from the verb they are modifying, because then people can get confused as to what it's actually modifying. We go to Disneyland tomorrow. Exams will start for science next week. The baby fell asleep after a while. That's why I was saying like adverbs are much more flexible than a lot of other words in English. Sentences can have multiple adverbs. In fact, I would say this is pretty common. Adverbs are a key way that we communicate information in English sentences. So the tree fell quickly to the ground due to the wind. The boy sometimes ate slowly from boredom. At midnight, the owl soared gracefully around. John and Susan swam vigorously and dived athletically, but not gracefully. Now, some of these could also be considered prepositional phrases like to the ground or at midnight. And again, like we were talking about, sometimes there's crossover between prepositions and adverbs. Okay. Now, just like in adjectives, adverbs have a certain order that they commonly follow if there's more than one in a sentence. So generally, if there's more than one in the sentence, you're going to have the adverbs of manner first, then adverbs of place, adverbs of frequency, adverbs of time, and adverbs of purpose. So an example might be, the boy runs swiftly, manner, across the street, place, every afternoon, frequency, after school, time, because, purpose, he visits his grandma until his parents get off work. Remember, however, that adverbs of time and frequency can often introduce an entire sentence. The sentence above could be written as something like, every afternoon, the boy runs swiftly across the street after school because he visits his grandma until his parents get off work. The big thing with adverbs is just making sure that it's clear when things are happening and what verb is being described if there's more than one verb in the sentence. Okay. So here are some sentences, and we're going to take a look, and you guys tell me or help me. Where are the verbs? The boy calmly took his test. So boy's our subject, took is our verb, and calmly is coming right before it. The team eagerly awaited their next opponent. Well, that ly is always a trigger, right? It's normally an adverb when you see it. The player very politely asked the official a question. So politely is definitely an adverb, but did you notice very is an adverb as well too, and it's modifying politely. The teams shook hands sincerely after the game. So sincerely is your adverb. The girl clumsily walked to her seat. So clumsily is our adverb. The boy walked dangerously close to the edge. Dangerously. I barely finished my test on time. Barely. The boy foolishly talked back to his teacher. Foolishly is our adverb. Joyfully, the woman shouted out loud. So here, joyfully is coming first. And that way you kind of get the emphasis or the idea that applies to the whole sentence. And then aloud is talking about how she shouted. The man nervously waited in line. Now, I'm trying to do ones that are really clearly adverbs here. There's a few that are kind of on the line that I'm just kind of leaving. Tomorrow, I am going to the movies. Tomorrow is describing when you're going. He sincerely asked me to move seats. Sincerely is your adverb. I jumped sleepily into bed at night. Sleepily. My mom drove here in her car. And here is your adverb. Those ones are harder, things like here, there, tomorrow, because they're not as obviously adverbs. They don't have that ly cluing you in that it's an adverb. Okay, so looking here at assignment number 9, this is a journal entry about learning, and it's worth 15 marks. So at this point, everybody has read chapter 1 of Jimmy Comes Home, and you've done some reflecting and some writing on it already. For this assignment, your task is to identify the behaviors and the attitudes you need to promote your own learning. You are to write 3 paragraphs based on the questions and the information below. Each paragraph should be at least 5 sentences in length. And yes, I do count them. And I do dock marks if they're not there. So please, if it says 5 sentences, count your periods. Make sure you've got 5 periods. Use the information in the sections below to help you organize each response. I'm going to read these and then we're going to talk about one of the issues. Paragraph 1. In order to promote your own learning, that is, to help yourself learn, you must be an active participant. What does that mean to you with regard to this course? Do you feel that you are an active participant? Explain why you feel that you are or are not an active participant in this course. Include any difficulties you may be experiencing and also any ways you feel your teacher may be able to help you participate more actively. Paragraph 2. On a scale of 1 to 10, how confident are you in your ability to improve your literacy skills? Reading, writing, speaking, etc. Comment on any barriers you feel you may come across on the way to improvement, and be sure to talk about how your teacher can help you feel confident in your ability to improve. Paragraph 3. In order to promote your own learning, you have to be persistent and you have to practice your skills. You also need to be willing to reflect on your learning process and learn from your mistakes. Use the ideas in the preceding paragraph to talk about your own persistence, practice habits, willingness to reflect, and learn from your mistakes in this course. Now, these questions are meant to be prompts that guide your thinking. Sometimes what happens is people try to answer each individual question separately rather than writing it all together as a unified paragraph. So I'm just going to kind of review what a paragraph is because it is a major part of this assignment. Remember, we've talked about the hamburger format. There's the top bun that introduces your topic, all the juicy meat and bits inside that are your details that support your topic, and then your bun on the bottom that is your closing sentence. Okay. Sometimes they summarize this format, tell them what you're going to talk about it, tell them what you talked about. It's kind of repetitive, but often we find that people do understand things better when there is a bit of repetition in what we write. Okay, so how do we apply this information about paragraph format? So one key aspect of a paragraph is that it starts with a topic or an opening sentence that serves as a broad introduction to the overall details of the paragraph. So let's look at the overall theme or topic to each paragraph. If you look at paragraph 1, they really state it right in the first line. The main topic here is about being an active participant. So all the questions are meant to help you flesh out that topic with details to explain why you are or are not being an active participant in the course. Then looking at paragraph 2, the main topic of this paragraph is how much confidence do you have in your own ability to improve your literacy skills? You may have a lot of confidence. That's great. Just explain why you feel confident about your skills. You may have very little confidence. That's okay too. Just explain why you don't feel confident. And if you have any ideas on how I might be able to help you, this is the place to suggest those ideas. I do take this seriously. I look at those things. If you say, I need to talk to you, by all means, that is always, my door is always open. Message me, call me. I'd be happy to talk to you. Okay, paragraph 3. The main topic here is a little bit harder to recognize because they kind of jump all over the place. But I would say the overall idea is, how are you going to help yourself learn? Or like, how are you going to promote your own learning? Promote doesn't mean like say how good you are at it, but it's more like increase it, encourage it. They suggest several ways. Be persistent, practice, reflect on your work, and learning from your mistakes. This kind of gives you a lot of ideas to fill up the details of your paragraph because you could just respond to those. Okay, so let me give you an example of brainstorming some ideas for what to write about here. And I would do this for each paragraph. And I'm going into a lot of detail because this is one of the first journals that is much longer than the previous ones. And I find people get a little bit overwhelmed and sometimes just don't do enough writing for this part. So remember, we've talked about how paragraph 1, the main idea is being an active participant. So my brainstorming is about what are some ways I could be an active participant? I could listen to classes. I could attend the Zoom classes if possible. I could ask questions by email or phone. I could make sure I do the assignments. Now, me, am I actually doing these things? Yes, I listen to some classes. Yes, I do the assignments. No, I don't really attend the Zoom classes or ask a lot of questions. Help. Well, sometimes there's time management issues. Sometimes I don't understand. Now, these are just my notes for myself. You wouldn't need to hand those in. It's just kind of thinking of some things to help you write a paragraph. So again, a paragraph, one sentence goes and then the other. There's no space between them. It's just kind of one paragraph. You put spaces between paragraphs, but all the sentences are going to run together like in a story. I think being an active participant is an important part of any course. For long distance learning, it means listening to the video classes, asking questions by email or phone, and doing the assignments. Right now, I am only occasionally listening to classes, and I have felt shy about asking questions. But sometimes I don't understand what the assignment wants me to do. I should probably try emailing you my questions. Then you could help me understand what to do. I should listen to the classes more as well. Overall, I need to become a more active participant. So you can see I started with my opening sentence that I think being active is important. I gave some details as to how and whether I'm doing it. And then I closed with overall, I need to be a more active participant. Now, if I wasn't sure if I had 5 sentences, look for your periods. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. So I've got 9 in that paragraph. So I've got plenty. I could even shorten it a little bit, but having more is not a bad thing. It gives you more chances to showcase your ideas. Paragraph 2 is talking about your confidence in how you could improve your literacy skills. So my brainstorming, my confidence is so-so. Some problems might be sentences, spelling, paragraphs. I'm okay with reading. Words are fine. Vocabulary is fine, although sometimes it's a bit hard to explain new words. Teacher encouragement, I'm not sure. Specific ways to improve, make it really clear. That's a tough one. So turning that brainstorming into a possible paragraph, here is what I've got. I feel somewhat confident in my ability to improve my literacy skills. So I'm probably around a 5 out of 10. I think my reading skills are pretty strong. I understand what I read pretty easily, but sometimes I have a hard time putting what I think into words. Writing is a lot harder. I am not always sure about how to know where a sentence stops. I find spelling hard, and I don't really understand paragraphs at all. The teacher could help by making it really clear what I need to do to improve. If she gives specific examples, that would be the easiest way for me to understand. Okay, and now we're moving on to the last paragraph here. The last paragraph, the main topic is how are you going to help yourself learn? So my brainstorming on ideas for that would be persistence, do a little each day, hand it in, even if I hate it, practice, pick a skill to practice, notice what mistakes I make, target those mistakes in the next assignment. So, like if I noticed that I keep getting notes from my teacher about remember to put things in paragraphs, then the next assignment, I'm going to really make sure I paid attention to the paragraphs. Now, here's my paragraph on this idea. I will help myself to learn in many different ways. I will try to do a little bit of work each day. I will start watching the classes on YouTube. I will hand in my work, even if I don't think it's great or I'm unhappy with it. I will pick a skill to practice for several assignments and see if I get better at it in the next assignment. I will read the teacher comments to see what I need to improve on. So in this case, just pointing out, generally, if I think there's things that you need to improve on, I will write it at the bottom of your assignments. I will say, oh, watch out for incomplete sentences, or remember to use periods, or oh, you got a little off topic here. Remember to pay attention to the question, that kind of thing, right? So the better you do, the more likely I am just to say, hey, great job. If there's difficulties, I'm more likely to try and give you specific ideas of what you could improve. Okay. Oh, okay. So what I was trying to do here, sorry. Sometimes when you write something at one point and then you look at it later, you're like, I don't know what I was doing at. I'm not sure what the top part is, but the part here was I was trying to say you do a paragraph and then you do a space, paragraph, and then a space, and then a paragraph. Okay. So this paragraph would be number 2. I would put it right here, and there'd be a space in ahead of it or atop of it, and there'd be a space underneath it. Okay. And that's just one way to indicate that you're grouping your ideas, right? It makes it a little bit easier for your reader to understand. I think it makes it easier for the writer once you get used to it, but it can be a bit tricky to get used to. All right. Once you have your paragraphs written, revise them a little bit. Read it out loud to yourself. Does it make sense? This is a big one. A lot of times, if we read silently, we don't notice our mistakes as much. But if we read it out loud to ourselves or read it out loud to a friend, the places where we forgot a word or we got kind of mixed up become much more obvious. Did you stay on topic in each paragraph? That is one of the biggest issues, I think, in a lot of writing is, did you answer the question they asked, or you just kind of start talking about other things that maybe aren't what they were asking about? Did I write at least 5 sentences for each paragraph? Hint, count the periods. I do. I check. This is one of those things I really do check every single time, and I will take off marks if you have not put enough sentences in each paragraph. So please remember to. Did I start repeating my sentences or words? Sometimes because people are trying to get the 5 sentences on into each paragraph, but they aren't sure what to say, they'll start saying the same thing over and over again in a different way. And I'm aware of that technique and I don't necessarily count it. So if you said, I really need to pay attention more in class, my goal is to start paying attention in class. I think the key is to start paying attention in class. Yeah, that's 3 sentences, but it's really only one idea. So make sure when you're writing a new sentence, you're kind of giving me an example or you're giving me a new idea, not just saying the same thing over and over, okay? Did I write in complete sentences? Remember that a simple sentence should have a subject, a verb, and the predicate, and it makes sense. It's a complete thought. Did I write run-on sentences? This is really common. I do it myself all the time if I'm not paying attention. I think the way we message each other in Facebook and Messenger these days kind of lends itself to we tend to just put a comma between our sentences instead of remembering to use a period. And so it becomes a thing when we start doing more formal writing, like for school. If you read your paragraph and the whole paragraph is one long sentence with like 5 or 6 different ideas, it is definitely a run-on sentence. Go through and put a period at the end of each new idea. Did you give specific details or are you really vague? So an example of this is sometimes I'll get people say, well, I should be more persistent. Yep. But they don't really go into what do they mean? I'm going to be more persistent and by sitting down every day after dinner and making sure to spend 20 to 25 minutes on some sort of assignment, right? Or, yeah, I feel like I don't understand, but they don't really explain what they don't understand. I feel like I don't understand when I read the questions. I'm not quite sure what sort of answer they're looking for. Or I feel like I didn't understand what I was reading. So then when they asked me the question, I didn't know quite what to say because I felt like I must have missed something. So if you can expand and give me details on what's happening when you're reading or writing or whatever, that makes for more effective sentences and higher marks. And it also helps me as a teacher because then I can understand what to tackle next time when I'm teaching it again. Because right, I teach some of these courses over and over again, and I add to them each time. So if I know one part has been a hard part for lots of students, I try and address that so it becomes easier or more understandable. Okay. Finally, do your editing. Editing is when you're checking for what they often call cups, capitalization, things like the word I, the first letter in a sentence, the first letter in a name or a title. Usage. Usage is things like the subject-verb agreement, misused or misunderstood words, sentence fragments or run-on sentences. Punctuation. Especially watch the commas to make sure that you aren't joining 2 sentences with a comma alone. You can join a sentence with a comma plus a coordinating conjunction and then the next sentence, or you can use a semicolon between 2 sentences. Spelling. It is totally fine to use spell check, but remember to watch for words that are spelled correctly, but are not the right word in that sentence. So let me give you an example right now. If I change this word to world, world is a totally correct, it's correctly spelled for that word, right? But it's not what I'm looking for. So if I try and hit spelling, I don't know if it will catch it. Hang on a sec. Oh, now it wants to change other things. Okay. All right, so you can see it skipped right over it. It didn't notice it as a spelling mistake because technically it's not a spelling mistake. It's spelled correctly. It just isn't the right word. So you have to be cautious of that. That catches me all the time too. Make sure when you're reading through that it's the right word that you wanted in that sentence. Okay, we're going to take a look at the reading logs because this is one of those things I get asked about a lot. The reading log, they only mention it kind of once specifically, but see this little purple book? Periodically in your units, you'll see a little purple book guy, and it's a reminder that they want you to make sure that you're filling in your reading log. And one of the things we do with the reading log is you hand it in at the end to me on lesson 20 with your portfolio. It's basically part of your portfolio. Sometimes people aren't sure, like, why are we doing this? And it kind of has multiple reasons. One, the government asks that students in this course do a reading log. The other thing is I'm trying to make sure that you notice that most times people do a lot more reading than they realize. Often when I say like, oh, do you do some reading? They'll say, oh, no, but they're thinking of like sitting down and reading a mystery novel or something. And they're not really paying attention to, yeah, they read a bunch of Facebook notes last night and they read a magazine article on hunting and they read the community notice about boil water advisory. A lot of times we really do a lot of reading over the course of a day at work, in our own lives, in our homes. And we're basically just wanting you to notice this. So if you look at the reading log, you've got your date, what type of text. We're looking for format there. Like, is it a magazine article, a newspaper article, Facebook email messages, a poster? What is it? The text. The text could be the title or the author or both. Um, the length of time spent reading or the number of pages read. So it really depends. Like if I was reading a recipe, it's probably only one page, but maybe it took me 10 minutes to read, right? Or maybe I flipped through a newspaper. I didn't read every single page. So I don't want to count pages, but I read for about 30 minutes. So you get to pick whatever seems appropriate, right? I'm not the reading police. It does not matter to me how you explain it as long as you're tracking it. And then you kind of give a comment on what you read. So here I'm saying that I was reading Cosmopolitan magazine for 20 minutes and I was reading about fall fashion. You could be looking at posters, legal documents, birthday cards somebody sent to you, a procedure manual telling you how to set up the photocopy machine in your office. Whatever it is that you read, write it down here, okay? And you're going to be doing that throughout the course. Okay. Yep. Talked about that. Benefits of having a reading log for adults. So this isn't just, sometimes people kind of associate this as being just like a school thing that we're doing because we're in school, but actually there are also people who keep reading logs just for their own purposes. And here are some of the reasons why. They bring order and structure to your reading. While reading is fun and entertaining, people who take it a little more seriously agree that reading in a more organized fashion, using reading lists or a reading schedule, daily goals, can make the experience a lot more rewarding. By having this mindful approach, you keep yourself accountable for the amount of reading you do and for meeting your own goals. Sometimes reading logs can kind of motivate you to read more. It's a form of accountability, and it can be a great motivator if you're struggling with the amount of reading you do and you're constantly dreaming about reading more. Having tangible proof of the exact amount of reading you do can be a wake up call for some, and it can help you to realize how much more you could be doing. A reading log can look however you want it to look. The one we've done is very bare bones, but you know, if after you left this course you wanted to continue doing a reading log, you can make it look all sorts of ways. I'm going to show you in a minute some of the interesting ways people keep track of their own reading. You can choose a predefined reading log template like I'm giving you, create your own. You can put it on a piece of paper or a reading app or a spreadsheet. Some people have like a special journal that they just use for what they've been reading. Having a list of books you've already read can be useful. Probably one of the most useful features of a reading log is the fact that it contains the complete list of books you've already read or tried reading and never finished. Especially if you use a digital reading log, this can make it extremely easy to search for book titles or group them in certain ways to see how many books you read from each author and make sure you don't buy the same book twice. When I used to work at a used bookstore, I was always on the lookout for old mysteries. I really liked the Agatha Christie. The one problem with the Agatha Christie is A, she's written so many things, And B, they often will redo the titles. So when it was first out, it was known as like, I don't know, The Man in the Brown Suit. And then later it became known as, My Summer of Folly or whatever. Um, so I would sometimes grab a book and pay for it twice and not realize I'd already read it until I got it home. So a reading log is kind of one way around those kind of issues. Here are some examples of grown-up reading logs. This one kind of draws a little picture of the cover of what they've read. I think this is really beautiful. This is one I've seen really commonly, like a little bookshelf, and people just write the name of a book on the back of the book spine. If people read like say you're reading like Game of Thrones, where there's loads and loads of chapters, instead of writing for each book, what they might write is for each chapter. So maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, and it helps you keep track of how far you've read in something where maybe it's longer and it's a bit of a slog for you, but you're trying to keep yourself motivated. Here, somebody kind of has their own little reading log where they've got a goal to read a certain number of pages a day, and they're looking at whether they met them. And then down here, this one has like a little book review. This kind of makes me think of school a little bit, but it might also be useful if you do a lot of reading in your job where you have to recommend books to other people. So these are just some ways that adults do keep reading logs. So I just wanted to show it to you because I know some people are a little bit not happy about doing the reading log, but lots of people do it just for fun. Okay. Okay, so here is a filled out one. If you can, try to fill one out every week, especially if you're in the radio Zoom course. Like if you're doing this in 9 weeks, try to fill one out Friday or Saturday. It doesn't have to be something you read every day. Here are some examples of things I read over the week: a recipe, a movie review, a novel, a birthday card, and product reviews. The title might be something as simple as Easy Meatloaf, Matt Sitz's review of Oppenheimer movie, 2 chapters in The Lincoln Lawyer. My aunt sent me the birthday card. Maybe I'm looking at chainsaws on Amazon. Length of time, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 15 pages, 10 minutes, or 30 minutes. I find minutes is easier to track, but that's just me. And then main idea or comment: how to make a quick meatloaf. Seems a bit put off by the use of close-ups. Just introducing the characters and stuff. I'm not sure if I like that book. Just catching me up on the news at her house, and still deciding which is the best one for the money we have. So it doesn't need a whole lot of information. It's just a matter of getting you to start noticing the reading that you're doing in your everyday life. Okay. So what's coming up next is basically just some really long lists. And again, part of this is because people get really locked into novels or maybe magazines. So I'm trying to list all the different possibilities of what you can read because there is so many things out there to read. Anything you read, if it has words on it, it counts. It could be the back of a shampoo bottle. In all honesty, I am fine with that, okay? Reading you do at work, things like schedules, health and safety posters, public safety posters like hand washing methods for COVID, emails, letters, invoices, receipts, staff handbook, machine manuals, benefits packages, company newsletter, work reports, calendars, inventories or databases, lists, phone messages, special events notices, or new procedural notices. Traditional reading materials are things like short stories, children's books, newspapers, plays, interviews, magazines, poems, song lyrics, religious material like the Bible, the Torah, the Quran, novels, anthologies, graphic novels or comic books, those count too. Reference materials, dictionaries, thesauruses, encyclopedias, atlases or maps, transportation schedules and tickets, telephone books, I don't know if those even exist anymore, yellow pages, textbooks, rhyming dictionary. People use those if they write poems and song lyrics, stuff like that. Nature guides, recipe books, car manuals. All right, things that you might see on social or electronic media, memes, Twitter or X messages, personal emails or promotional emails, messenger texts, phone texts, Facebook ads or Facebook news, friends posts. Maybe you read some blog posts. Maybe you are signed up to an online newspaper or online magazines. Discord messages, Things like WhatsApp, Snapchat, Instagram, Reddit, Tumblr, maybe dating sites, recipes, transcripts, craft instructions or sewing instructions, repair instructions, troubleshooting media problems, game hints and cheat codes, movie, book, game, and product reviews. Even if you're like, okay, I'm going to buy something on Amazon, but I'm going to read the reviews and make sure this is a good one. Oh, wait, this review says that I go, wait, there's a bunch of reviews saying that something was broken inside. Maybe I better find something different. That counts. You're using your reading skills to make a decision. That is totally valid to say, Amazon reviews. School communications. If you're a parent, you might be getting school communications from your children, from your teachers, from whoever. If you're a student at school, we might be sending you things. So things like newsletters, permission slips, school notices, report cards, behavioral notices, IEP reports, team communications, fundraising letters and memos, posters, busing information, communication apps like Classroom Dojo, personal and community, things like election notices, rummage sales, bingo notices, community reports, cards and letters, legal documents, and medical documents. Those are all different types of reading you might do. Okay, so that more or less brings us, I don't think we have enough time to go on to question number 10, but these lists of reading can definitely help you do question number 10 if you want to work ahead a little bit. 10 is fairly easy, and then number 11 gets pretty hard. That's where we start to look at reading news reports, and then we're going to be writing a news report and then revising it. So 11, 12, and 13 are kind of our bigger writing projects. So if you want to work a little bit ahead so you've got extra time when we get there, that is great. Do I have anybody on today? I'm just going to check real quick. Does anybody have any questions? Okay. Thank you so much for coming out and listening. And tomorrow will be our last class for the week. Thank you, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Bye-bye.